Now that we got our carburetor clean, we're going to go and reinstall it back on to the engine. A couple of obvious things that we don't want to forget. We don't want to forget to hook up our fuel lines. Another thing that we need to pay close attention to is make sure the gasket is in good shape. Should use a new gasket when you put it back on. So we have our new gasket right here that we're going to install on here. You look for rips in it, cracks, splinters, anything like that that will prevent the carburetor from sealing up properly. Because if you have a little air leak in here, your engine is going to have what we call a lean sneeze, or you're going to have a real hard time getting the idle mixture screw set right on this carburetor. So we're going to install a gasket in this place. You do not need to use sealant on it. We're going to hook up our fuel line right here. This is for the fill the float bowl. Install that, and we've got our primer line right here that goes onto this nipple that we talked about earlier. That's for the primer. Slide it in place. Okay, so it's nice and tight. And there, we've got our wrench. We've got two mounting nuts that are going to hold the carburetor on. Don't lose these guys. They're fine threaded. They're special nuts. You notice that there's a washer built onto them. It makes it a whole lot easier to install the carburetor with these than to find yourself a fine threaded nut later and also get the washer to stay in place. Spin them on. They start usually pretty easy. Remember what I said, the nuts cannot tighten all the way down. You can't just tighten one all the way down and then tighten the other one. You got to do them side by side, stagger them, because this aluminum boss right here, and the same on the other side, is too close to the stud. So if you tighten one up all the way, the carburetor is going to be kittywampus, and that nut on the other side, if you did start it, it's going to be jamming out on the aluminum. It's going to damage the carburetor. So work back and forth. Try not to damage the threads, or you're going to sit there having to use your half-inch wrench all the way down, whereas if you don't damage the threads, you can pretty much just finger tighten them all the way and then just finish it with the wrench at the very end. Get this one tightened up, and I'll go to the other side. Come on. There we go. I like to look around the carburetor, make sure I didn't accidentally get something pinched in the mounting surface. Oh, looks pretty good right now. Alright, we'll hook up our connecting link and snap it into place. So that's all good there. Alright, so we've got those tightened up, got our fuel lines on. Don't forget about your primer line. Might as well throw that on right now. Grab the starter. Battery's still disconnected. We'll set it up here. And we got to get it onto this stud right here and line it up. There, so it's all in place. And we'll go throw those particular nuts on there. Starting that up front, right there. Don't forget about him. Normally on these particular engines, people normally forget about this. What ends up happening is this mounting boss right here gets egged out and goes kittywampus on there. And then the starter doesn't line up properly anymore. Okay, forget about this one down on the bottom. And just like when you start tightening up anything, anywhere on an engine, you want to get all the bolts started before you tighten any one particular one up. So that's going to do for you is that's going to allow you to wiggle things around to get it started a whole lot easier. I'm going to grab my flex socket extension. And my ratchet. And we'll get all these tightened up. That one. I'll snug this up so I don't forget. It's tight, that one's tight. We'll get this one up here in front. Tight. So grab our ground wires. Got 2 of them, and they go on the stud right here. It's also on that same bracket. And while we're at it, we're going to take and throw this back in there. Our starter motor, our starter solenoid. Pull the protective boot up. Easier to get it now than it is to get it later. Okay, that's in there. We'll need to tighten up that bolt back there yet. Grab the wrench. Someplace safe. So we'll be using them shortly. That's not on there. Tighten him. I like to tighten the bolts as I do each different procedure so we don't forget to tighten them. This tight right here. I'll tighten the clamp underneath that. I'll put the other part on. And then we can go back, tighten the throttle arm back up. There we go. Put this right here. Started. There we go. Now keep in mind these are very small screws right here, so you don't need to put a lot of torque on them just so they ain't gonna back out, or you're going to end up ruining them. We're down to our throttle cable now. So we have that spacer and got our bolt, shoulder bolt right here. Spacer goes between this plastic piece we talked about earlier. If you tighten it straight down to there, it's going to have some slop in it without the spacer, so the spacer needs to be there underneath it. Grab a 3/8 inch end wrench, tighten it up. There, all nice and snug. Go through this, make sure the flywheel is free. Alright, so what do we got left? We have to run the engine, hook the battery up, because we had the battery disconnected. We're going to run the engine, now we're going to find out if it actually idles and fixes, and it actually fixes the problem. So hook up the negative cable on the battery. Grab a 1/2 wrench. So we're snug. Hook up the fuel. Remember, whenever we start an outboard, we'll make sure the carburetor is full, so we're going to squeeze the primer ball. Got hard, so that's all great. Give it some throttle. So we'll give it a little bit of throttle. Pull the primer out once, all the way back in, out twice, and let it sit. Fire it up. Leaving it warm up a little bit. We talked about earlier about that little red line on the primer. Let it warm up just a little bit. Once you figure that's warmed up to the point, shut the primer completely off. Better than what it did before. Let the engine warm just a little bit more yet. Something else that I want you to make note of when you're running an outboard, if you're not familiar with them, there is a telltale water stream over here. You want to make sure this water's peeing out of here. There's a telltale stream down here. I want to make sure that's got water coming out of it. Good healthy stream. And also we have a little mist of water down here. For sure this, sometimes you'll have this, and this is normal. If you don't have this stream right here, but you still have the water spraying out, you might just have a little bit of dirt plugged up inside of the end of the nipple and the hose. Travels all the way around from this tube right here down to this. So you can take a piece of wire or a little compressed air or something and run it up there. A lot of times sand or something will get stuck in the bottom of this nipple where the water's spraying out and prevent it from coming out. But yet the engine is not overheating. The engine's still staying cool. So far you can see that the engine's still idling, which means you probably have the idle mixture screw set pretty close to where it needs to be. Slow her down a little more, so we know that we're definitely running off the idle circuit. We'll put it in gear. Then we're going to adjust the idle mixture screw a little bit. We'll turn it in, so you hear the motor start cutting out, little by little. Okay, you hear motor starting to slow down there. Crank it open a little bit. So make note of where it stopped. So make note of where it stopped, where the engine started slowing down. Make note of where it stopped, so you notice where the engine's slowing down. And then you start backing it out. So I backed it out a 1/2 turn. Now I'm 3/4 of a turn from where the motor nearly snubbed out. There's a full turn from where the motor nearly snubbed out. You hear the motor slowing down a little bit. Alright, so we're about a turn difference between the two. So we're going to back this in 1/2 a turn to cut the difference in half. So we turn it down till the motor starts slowing down, we back it out till the motor starts slowing down, and then we cut the distance in half, and that's where we're going to park the screw, so we know we have it in the right spot. how you adjust the idle mixture screw on a carbureted engine. Doesn't matter whether it's an outboard, a snowmobile, four-wheeler, your car, your truck. It's got a carburetor.